Before we discuss anything else, I've got a confession to make. I'm not perfect. And that may come as a shock to some of you, I know, but hear me out here. One of my biggest flaws is that I am terribly impatient, and that bleeds into gaming as well. If a game doesn't grab me within the first 15 minutes or so of playing it, I got no issue letting it sink to the bottom of my Steam library to sit forever, next to games like Cube World and Muck. And another flaw is I do not learn lessons. I will make the same mistake over and over while retaining absolutely zero information. Now, that all being said, let me tell you two quick stories about two of my favorite games of all time. Let's go back to the long-forgotten year of 2005. I was a young man of 10, and as my birthday fastly approached that year, I wanted one thing and one thing only. GameCube games. So many great games came out that year. Time Splitters, Lego Star Wars, Mortal Kombat Deception, Ultimate Spider-Man, and I wanted them all. What I didn't expect, though, was my parents' gift to me. A little game called Resident Evil 4. Now, I was too young for horror games when the PS1 was popular, but I had watched my sister play some of Resident Evil 1, and I remember being super fascinated with the world in the game, so I was kinda surprised and kinda hyped to play this one. Even though I didn't know what happened in between Resident Evil 1 and 3, but I didn't care. I ran over to our TV, popped in the disc, and got all the way to the first village section, you know, where you get mobbed by waves of enemies, and I died. I then calmly took the game out of the GameCube, put it back in its box, and did not touch it for years. Yeah, I got stumped, and then immediately gave up on one of the best action games ever made, because I couldn't get past the first area of the game. Then, as an early teen, I tried again, and surprise, using stealth and cunning instead of run and gun tactics, I breezed through that area. It then quickly became one of my favorite games of all time. I own it and have beaten it multiple times on every single system it's available on that I own. Our second story takes place in 2012. I'd owned an Xbox 360 for years at that point, and by chance I'd buy a game off the Microsoft Store by the name of Dark Souls. Now, I had heard of this game, I'd heard the game was amazing, and I remember seeing my friend with a PS3 play Demon Souls and going, holy shit, that looks rad. And I got so excited, I downloaded it immediately, I booted it up, I made my character, and then I made it as far as the first fight with the Asylum Demon. And I'll say that again, the first fight with the Asylum Demon. You know, the one you're not supposed to win, the one you're supposed to die at. And after trying and failing to beat it over and over again, I quit the game and didn't touch it again. I wouldn't play it again until around a year later. Yeah, I got stumped and then immediately gave up on one of the best action games ever made because I couldn't get past the first area of the game. I did it again. And when I did come back, though, oh boy, did it quickly become one of my favorites. The challenge, the lore, the endless possibilities of playstyles, and all the secrets and hidden areas. I played through it, like, again and again. And then I went on to play 2, and I loved it all the way through. I went on to play 3, and I loved it all the way through. All 3 games have their ups and downs, but there is so much to love. Of course, my all-time favorite is going to be the original. The original Dark Souls was amazing, and it was groundbreaking, and sure, by the time I'd played 2 and 3 over and over again, I hadn't played the original in years, but there's no way that experience could be topped. I mean, 2 was so challenging, exciting, and the world was so expansive, and the lore they added was so good. But it wasn't the original. Then 3? 3 wanted nothing more than to be like a Disney World dark ride of the original. It was good, don't get me wrong, I had a lot of fun, and it is the best co-op system of all 3 games, but it was just blandly rehashing all the best parts of the original, and there's no way a replica could be better. So, imagine how excited I was in 2017 when they announced a true and honest remaster of the original Dark Souls. New graphics, the co-op system from 3, and all the things I loved from the original. So I got Dark Souls Remastered the day it launched, booted it up, made a character, and stormed through the familiar landscapes and got to see all the wonderful characters I'd missed. Except, it was kind of a bleh experience. The game I love was almost 10 years old now, and it kind of felt like it. I played through it once, ran through the DLC, and I slayed Gwyn, and it all kind of just felt okay-ish at best. A lot of it even felt unfun. Now call me a Minecraft mob that shoots fireballs because I was aghast. How could my favorite game not age well? So I put it down after beating it, and I kind of left it for a while. Now, I have picked it up a few times here and there. I streamed it for a few days a few months ago, but I just couldn't really get into it. That feeling felt all too familiar to me. It was like I was a kid again, putting away a great game because I was too impatient not to give it the time and effort. And I don't want that. I can't do that to Dark Souls. Not again. So here I am now. I am the Cardboard Robot, and I'm here to take a look back at the game that shook the industry. The game that forever engraved the words "get good" into the collective consciousness of the internet. This is Dark Souls, a retrospective. So, very quickly, for this retrospective I ran through the remaster on PC, so that's the footage I'll be using. Secondly, I'll be using the same rules for judging that I use with my Return to Skyrim videos, and they are the following. I'm going to try and review and analyze this game as though it was the first time I was playing it. And I will be giving the game a preliminary score before breaking it down to compare it to later. And for funsies, I figured I'd give Dark Souls 2 different preliminary reviews. One for what pre-2018 Cardboard Robot would have said, and one for how I felt before playing it for this review. And while I may point out things that are extremely aesthetic or very impressive artistic choices, I'm not going to be discussing the graphics, nor how the game looks in modern time. I do not care about the graphics. It does not impact whether the game is fun or well designed. So let's start with my preliminary reviews, and I'll keep these short. Holy shit, dude. Holy shit, this game is incredible. It's so fucking good. It's hard, but in like a satisfying, challenging way. And it's not just hard. You have to be really good at it, you know? You can really do whatever configuration you want, and there are endless weapon and magic choices. Never mind how you personally want to approach enemies. It's a definite must-play, non-stop amazing, start to finish, 10 out of 10. I love this game a lot, and I think when it came out there was nothing really like it before. It gives the player the illusion of a ton of freedom to explore however they want, but if you're under-leveled and not amazing at the game and try to explore, you're just gonna die over and over. I found most of it enjoyable, but I find there are some areas that are beyond frustrating, and are seemingly designed to be that way, and I want to stress, not challenging, just purposefully frustrating. That all being said, it does feel unbelievably good to land that last hit on the Lord of Sunlight and think back on all the game has put you through, and it's incredibly satisfying to know that you climbed that mountain. I'd give it a 7 out of 10. Now, on to my review based on my current playthrough. Let's get the story out of the way. On its surface, it's pretty simple. Gwyn, the Lord of Sunlight, has linked his very soul to the fire that keeps the Age of Light going. Due to him doing this, some people, that are called, appropriately, the undead, come back to life over and over again after being killed. Of course, dying over and over makes these people go crazy, which has made the land very dangerous. The only way to stop the undead from coming back to life is for you, one of the undead themselves, to go kill the old gods of the Age of Light, and then Gwyn himself, and then replace him, relinking the fire to a fresh host. Well, that's what you're told anyway, but throughout the game you start getting told conflicting information. What if the benevolence of the gods was a ruse? What if Gwyn's motives to link the fire were purely self-serving? What if the curse of the undead that has befallen the world was actually the fault of the Lord of Sunlight linking the fire? What if the world would be better off if the fire was allowed to die? That's something you'll have to decide, and whatever you decide, you will have to find Gwyn and forcefully remove him from the fire. And to do this, you're going to have to traverse the dangerous lands of Lordran, the demon-run cities of Lost Izalith, deep underground, and the city of the gods Anor Londo, high above Lordran. There is, of course, a lot more to explore through the visual storytelling and the NPCs you'll meet along your journey. We're not going to deep dive into all the great side characters and stories today, and we may save that for a future video. But, speaking of the visual story, this is where Dark Souls shines above so many other games. There is so much detail in this world. There is lore everywhere you look, in the detail of the architecture, in the background of the areas, and famously, in all the descriptions for all the items in the game. And this can lead to a very interesting effect, because in essence, you can play Dark Souls from beginning to end without knowing who a single person is or why you're doing a single thing you're doing. On the other hand, maybe you want to know more about, let's say, the Way of White, a covenant you can join in the game. Well, you could go talk to Petrus at the Firelink Shrine at the start of the game. You'll learn that the Order exists and that they hail from a land called Thorland. You could find a gold coin, which if you read the description, you'll notice that they have no value in Lordran and must hail from somewhere else. Also, they have the face of someone named Allfather Lloyd on them. Who's that guy? Well, if you find a Lloyd's talisman, you'll learn that Allfather Lloyd ran an order of cleric knights who hunt down the undead, which outside of Lordran are considered monsters. Note here that the game starts with you, an undead, locked away in a prison made to house the undead. So what do these things have to do with each other? Well, If you find a white seance ring, you'll learn that not only is Allfather Lloyd the head of the Way of White, which makes him the leader of those cleric knights, but also, he's Gwyn's uncle. That's a crazy bit of world building that is completely inconsequential to the story of you being the chosen undead and dethroning Gwyn, and you'd only ever know about it if you looked for it. And there's so much intrigue and lore hidden like that everywhere in this game, and it is addicting. It makes me want to find every little secret in every corner of the world. A world, by the way, that is famously connected. As you explore the world and progress through the game, you're going to open up shortcuts that make the world way easier to navigate. For example, you could go from the Firelink Shrine, which is the hub world, to the Undead Burg, which then leads to the Undead Parish, but hey, here's an elevator that you can unlock in the parish that leads back to the Firelink Shrine. You could go through the parish, get the key to the depths, and you can get to the depths from the Undead Burg, which surprises a shortcut back to the Firelink Shrine, and is a straight shot to Blighttown. On the other side of Blighttown is a shortcut to the Valley of the Drakes, which not only leads back to the Firelink Shrine through New Londo, but also leads to another elevator that goes to the Darkroot Basin. Darkroot Basin not only leads back to the parish, but also is a shortcut that goes back to the Undead Burg. And if you played Dark Souls, I'm sure you completely followed all of that and it made complete and total sense to you. And if not, just know that you can get almost anywhere from anywhere, even before halfway point in the game where you get the ability to fast travel. It's extremely good, and it makes the giant world so easy to navigate. So far I've only talked about the good stuff, and before I get to the bad, I think it's important to talk about Dark Souls as a project. Of course, everyone knows Dark Souls is a spiritual successor to the PS3's Demon's Souls, which in itself is a spiritual successor to the Kingsfield series on the PS1 and 2. So, the game wasn't built from the ground up in any ideological sense. That being said, though, Dark Souls was way more ambitious for the company in both scope and detail, and it almost never got made. You see, Demon's Souls was a commercial flop in its original Japan-only release. And it wouldn't even get a Western release until nearly a year later, and only because Western audiences begged for Sony to localize the game. Sony refused, as they had completely wrote off and tried to blacklist both the game and company inside of Japan, but Bandai Namco and Atlus jumped at the publishing opportunity to meet the explosion of the fan outcry. And just like that, the game was a smash hit, becoming infamous in the PS3 community for being the hardest game on the console. Just like that, the thoughts of a similar game went from being a lost cause to a real option. Now, it couldn't be a sequel, of course, because Sony owned the IP and completely cut themselves off from FromSoft. Though, with Bandai Namco backing them, creative director Hidetaka Miyazaki already had the bones for a similar game to his infamous dark fantasy adventure. Except this time, they would go bigger, better, more detailed, more open, and God help me they did. There was an interconnected world, there were covenants, there were new weapon systems, there was a focus on exploration and an open world. Understand, though, they had a giant project to pull off that was under a ton of scrutiny, and they only had 2 years to do it. That's not a lot of time for any game, never mind one so ambitious and large in scope as Dark Souls, and especially when working for Miyazaki, who personally was in charge of all text in the game, including labels, descriptions, and menus, all names in the game, including characters, locations, armor, and items, the story and lore, background music and sound effects, cutscenes and artwork, map and level design. Now, of course, he did give his team members creative freedom, but he would lead these philosophical and conceptual discussions with his team to flesh out the game and to make absolutely certain they align to his vision. And of course, everything must personally get his approval, and he is the final say on the output of anything and everything in the game. I bring this up not to say it's a bad creative style, or maybe they should have been less fantastical and less ambitious with what they wanted to put into Dark Souls. I just think it's really important information to understand before we get into... Alright, I'm gonna get this out of the way right now. Before we continue, please go into the comments and tell me how I'm a fake Souls fan, and how I should just get good, and how I'm jumping on a hype train, and how dare I insult your favorite game, and how I don't really understand good game design, or a game I've played for 400 hours and spent countless hours researching the lore of. Okay, are you good? You get that all out of your system? Because I'm good if you're good. Okay, then let's continue. Let's talk about all the problems with Dark Souls then. As I said before, Demon's Souls was only saved by its Western release, and it only got a Western release because of its infamy and cult following for being so difficult. So, to compete, Dark Souls had to be bigger, it had to be harder, it had to be more infamous. Now this leads to some issues, specifically and most noticeably with the idea of making the game difficult that don't really work with the limitations of the game's AI. That's mostly that the hit and model detection leave a lot to be desired for a modern audience, and oftentimes lead to deaths that just feel like a failure of the game and not myself. And listen. If I die because of a lack of skill, that's fine. That's my fault. I should just get good. I understand that. But if I die because my sword's decided to do its impression of Casper the Friendly Ghost today and phase through the enemy on the last hit, then we kinda have a problem. I'll give you a few examples of what I mean. Constantly throughout the game, you're going to be in situations where you're going to be hit by enemies that you cannot see or touch that are hitting you through walls with their weapons. And listen, this game does have cool ideas for enemies, like these skeletons in the catacombs that ride in wheels at high speeds, and when they hit you, they do damage, except they're so poorly implemented. Get this, they do not register that they hit you, so they spin into you forever like you're not even there, and they do damage every tick until you're dead. And if you block, they will still keep spinning and drain your stamina. This not only makes them an unfair and annoying enemy, but one that literally defies the laws of physics, force, and motion. Though, you can see the idea being executed much better, and the enemies being actually functional in Dark Souls 3. You can see here that if it hits you, it either does damage and stops, or skids past you, which does less damage, but hits you multiple times before it rolls past you. You can also block them with your shield, which, amazingly, will cause them to stop instead of spinning into solid metal for all eternity. Can I just rant for a little bit about the catacombs, and how it is one of the worst areas in Dark Souls? The catacombs are so annoying. They just send waves of enemies for you to fight, which would be pretty par for course if it weren't in extremely narrow halls, which means if you have a long swinging weapon, you're fucked. Oh, and that's not even the worst part of the tight spaces. No, there's also the fact that the camera will either constantly jump around trying to compensate for the hallways, or get super close up to the back of your head, so you can't actually see what's happening. Also, because your camera is jumping around, if you use ranged weapons or spells, you better not have to use targeting, because every time the camera jumps around, it will take you off lock from whatever enemy you're aiming at. And I can't tell you how many times in this run I was aiming with a lightning bolt just for the camera to jump as I shot, causing me to shoot lightning straight into the floor. Oh, and on top of all that, there are necromancers throughout the catacombs that you have to hunt down, or else the skeleton enemies will just revive over and over again. Oh, and because of how the AI works, if you kill a skeleton and run past it, and you're at a completely different place when it revives, it will magically know where you are and attempt to hunt you down. There are a lot of other problems, of course. There are entire boss fights, like the Stray Demon in Bed of Chaos, where the entire fight is RNG. The Stray Demon has an unavoidable AoE attack that he'll use randomly, and sometimes he'll just use it over and over again. So you really have to jump in and just hope you get the right series of moves, where it either doesn't use it often, you get lucky and he misses you because he puts it in the wrong spot, or it gives you enough breaks to heal in between. Also, while I was fighting him on this run, I had this weird glitch happen. If anyone has any explanation to what's happening here, please let me know in the comments, because I'm so confused. If we're going to agree on anything in this section, it's probably going to be this. The Bed of Chaos, not only by far the worst boss fight in any Dark Souls game, it may very well be the most terribly designed, painfully unfun boss I've ever encountered in a video game. You have to attack two wards that are on opposite sides of the giant arena, while the boss tries to swat you into giant holes that open up underneath your feet at random. Then after that, you have to make a leap of faith onto a branch in one of the holes, which you can be swatted right out of the air, and there's literally nothing you can do about it. It is laughably bad. Finally, I want to talk about my biggest gripe. The jump and narrow areas. These are areas that require you to either do jump puzzles or walk tightropes while fighting, and this wouldn't be so bad. And hell, it might even be a satisfying challenge if everything worked the way it was supposed to. One misstep or wrong move used, and you slide off a banister like you were covered in butter. You hit an invisible wall, time to plummet to your death. You use a spell that is specifically designed to stop you from dying from fall damage. Well, you know, you fell down a livable height, but it was just a little faster than the game wanted you to, so you die. You land on a platform that the game has both presented to you as a platform, but has also arbitrarily decided is not able to be stood upon. Well, that's a death. And that's all part of a bigger issue this game has, which is the fact that the geometry just doesn't work very well. You're either constantly going to get stuck in place, or stuck in a hole, which is annoying at best, and deadly at worst. with all I've said, and with all the rage and all the pieces of the game that don't feel like they particularly aged well, I fucking love this game. I love the world, I love exploring, I love the NPCs, I love getting a new weapon that I think is cool, and essentially the game forcing me to relearn how to play so I can use its unique moveset effectively. I love that every time I start a game, I can make a whole new character that does completely individual things to any of my previous characters. I love finding hidden areas, and there is so much to find. Actually, in this run I did for this video, I learned something new about the game. Yeah, the game that I played for hundreds of hours, dozens of times, I learned something new. Before this run, I never knew the Crestfallen Merchant existed. I didn't even know you could access that part of Sen's Fortress, or at least I'd never tried. But I tried this time, and there he was, and I lost my shit, I'm not kidding! There's so much cool stuff like that, and honestly, I just want to gush for a minute. Isn't it so cool when you find the Great Hollow, which not only is an optional area, but it's also hidden by multiple secret walls, and you descend through this whole fucking labyrinth of vines just to find the actual battleground where Gwyn fights the dragons in the opening fucking cutscene, and then you go through that area and fight a goddamn Hydra to reveal that there's still a living eternal dragon. And isn't it, oh, it's so heartbreaking. If you do the Abyss DLC before you fight Sif, he's gonna recognize you as the person who saved him when he was a puppy, and he'll hesitate and cry out before he draws his sword. It's fucking agonizing. And it's so cool. It's so fucking cool. When you get far enough in the Chaos Servant Covenant, you get this shortcut to Lost Izalith, and then you learn by doing that, if you go through the shortcut and you kill the Sunlight Maggot, you save Solaire from getting his mind corrupted, so at the end of the game you can summon him. You can summon the Warrior of Sunlight Solaire to help you kill motherfucking Lord of Sunlight Gwyn. Of course, we should all just bask in the sunny glow of the existence of bisexual icon Solaire of Astora, and all of what I've just said is canon. Don't you fucking at me. Honestly, Dark Souls is a classic, and playing it again makes me remember why. That being said, it does have newer installments that really outdo themselves in each attempt Miyazaki makes. I think the original Dark Souls does shine high above the rest when it comes to exploration and world building. But is it the most fun of the three? No. Is it the best of the three? Again, no. Is it worth going back to revisit? Sure. For anyone who loves the world, loves the lore, or loves hair-pulling games that still more than not feel like you're at fault for dying. Unless, of course, you know, you got caught on a ledge, or an invisible wall, or an enemy you didn't know was there hit you from the other side of a wall, or a stone platform the game forces you to jump on, decides to teleport you off, or an enemy you've dodged teleports to hit you, or you dodge a grabbing enemy and somehow they still grab you even though you're now behind them, or you dodge roll and the game decides that you still get hit, you don't get the iframes, but for some reason, that makes the enemy deal double damage, or you get cursed because of Basilisk. Hey, I want to thank everyone who stuck through all the way to the end. Thank you for watching. This is the first in a series I'm planning on doing where I look back at some of my favorite games as well as some classics and critical darlings just to see how they stack up here in current year. If you like what you saw, it would really mean a lot if you could subscribe, or at least give this video a thumbs up, or leave a comment on what game you'd like to see me cover in the future. If you want to see more of my content, I stream over at Twitch pretty regularly. Other than that, thanks again for watching, and I'll see you next time.